He's a group chief executive of Altron. And I had a good chat with him because Altron has been a family business for many years, and he was telling me the transition which is happening. So it's great to see from a family business becoming a professional business, and he's leading the charge. But he's been in this field of technology, IT, telecommunications. He's been a chief executive officer of MTN South Africa. He's also been a group chief enterprise officer. I asked him, what does enterprise officer? He told me that there's two sections of a company like MTN. There's one that deals with consumer, and there's one that deals with customers. So he was looking after that business, which is a big chunk of MTN group. So he's gained a tremendous amount of leadership experience. He's been a managing director of Microsoft. He's been in the IBM family. And he grew up in that family. So you can see that's what we do here, and the type of people we invite in ULP is people who have really worked hard, people who have not been involved in quick rich schemes, because we promote work ethic, we promote family. He's been married for 24 years with one wife. And on that note, I also remember, where's my wife? She's not here. She's outside. She's doing all the. Where? There. Yeah, she's. Hello, honey. You still have to match up with me. I'm married for 32 years, but you'll get there. You'll get there. You'll get there. So that's wonderful. And he's also he's an engineer by trade, from University of Natal, and then also Yale University. It's not there. So we really appreciate you coming, and we're looking forward to hear your lessons that you've learned on leadership, and we will really will enjoy. So welcome him as he come up front. Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chair. And, is it Mfundisi? Yes. Is it Mfundisi? Okay. We usually call you Mfundisi. Thank you so much. I must say that on behalf of myself and also my company, the company I'm working for, Altron, we are really, really honored to have been invited to come and have this discussion, this conversation with you. I've been with Altron now for 11 months. So this conversation that I'm going to be having with you, I'm going to start from the beginning. From the beginning, meaning where I come from, even before I started to work. I'm going to start there. But I need to do all of that in 30 minutes. That's what Mfundisi told me. And I'll try to do that. So I hope the technology is going to work. Yes. Okay. I come from the Eastern Cape. I'm sure some of you know this place called the Eastern Cape. It's one of the poorest regions of South Africa. Not that I'm proud of it, but I think one needs to acknowledge that. One of the most important things in any leadership is to understand reality, and if your situation, it is that situation, you need not to lie about that situation. It is what it is. You start from there. So our region is not the most popular when it comes to development. It's probably one of the leading regions when it comes to corruption. Very poor. I come from that environment. I come from an environment where at home there are 10 of us. 10 at home. 2 wives. 10. And I'm sitting at number 7. Being number 7, you clearly, as you are growing up, start to see that you are number 7. Number 7, wow. You know what? This heritage thing, it won't work for me. I think that I'm going to inherit something from my dad, it won't work. Number 7, you need to go figure out how you are going to make sure that you look after yourself. It became clear to me way back then. So we are 10, and of course I'm number 7, and there's like 6 ladies and 4 of us. Very interesting environment because my parents ended up being, in fact, my mom, she owned a little shop. She ended up being an entrepreneur. And if I were to look back at the person that lifted our family, the person who took our family from below, poverty line to being, I would say, middle class, is actually my mother. It's her decision to say, I'm going to stop teaching, going to go out there and start a shop, start a business. And through this business, I want to make sure that I educate my children. Through all of that, she worked very hard and ended up having, not lifting only the 4 children that she ended up having, she also lifted every one of us, all of the 10 children, and including my dad in the process. So what is my point here? My point is that some of these things is about really making some decisions and taking decisions and making choices. She took that decision. She was very, very focused around the decision she made. And when you look back, the kind of impact that she had on us, it was huge, Had she not taken that one decision, who knows where we would be, What I'm saying is that it all goes back to you. It all goes back to the choices that one makes. One of the things that she did was she was very clear about what I would call child labor, using us, instead of hiring people, using us to go and do some work for her. Through all of that, I ended up, me and of course my siblings, we ended up waking up around 4:30 in the morning to go fetch some of the stuff so that when we open up the shop much later, when we open up the shop at 6 o'clock, we've got fresh milk, we've got bread, we've got veggies, all of the things that the customers from within the community want. But in order to have that, somebody has to wake up. And we had to wake up at about 4:30. So now some people ask me, it looks like you are a morning person. I'm not so sure whether, is it how I was born, or is it because of what she made us to be, We end up, waking, for me, for that, it's like, no, it's like wired, I'm part of that. So that is me coming from that environment in the Eastern Cape. And sometimes when we get into companies, what we end up doing, we end up saying, maybe let me leave behind who I am, because now I'm entering this new environment. Largely in the past, it was largely a white environment in business. And I think that is a big mistake, a big mistake. There is a reason why you were born where you were born. There is a reason why you chose the parents that you chose. There is a reason why you ended up with the siblings that you have. And if you now, when you look back, when you start to enter into key environments, you discard all of that. You are actually leaving behind something that is so powerful. Because who you are, your purpose in life, is linked to also the fact that you are coming from the environment that you are coming from. You have the experiences that you have, the circumstances that you ended up having. All of those are very important in terms of defining who you are. Very, very important. So I would say that when I look back, and I look back at the environment that I come from, very rural area, a very poor environment, also coming from a family that was very much entrepreneurial. some of the things that I feel that that environment gave me is the whole question of empathy. Of course, if you are coming from black families, this whole concept of Ubuntu, to me is something that we should not leave behind when we enter corporations. It's something that helps us to connect with people, to make sure that the things that we do, they do not serve only us, but they serve others. And that's who we are. And if we decide to leave all of that at the gate as we enter the gates of the companies that we work for, I think we will be leaving something that is so powerful that can help us to be successful. Because if you look at it today, what's lacking most in the work environments is people who care. People who can put themselves in the shoes of others. It's the managers and leaders that get that. And if you have that, that's something that's going to differentiate you. And it's something that is kind of like inborn. It comes just because you happen to be black in South Africa. If you leave that behind, I think you are leaving something so valuable. Coming from from the family that I come from, customer service, something that clearly was being drummed on us, something that we continue to focus on, and it's something that is so important today. Understanding that you are there, you are not there for yourself, you're not there for your title that you are a CEO, you are there to serve the customer. That is the person that is paying everything. You need to look after the needs of that customer and make sure that you deliver the best service. A good work ethic, of course, waking up at 4:30, you're already, is something that, coming from an environment where you've got, already families, two families, my dad, of course, he divorced, ended up marrying my mother, and then, you've got an environment that is a challenging environment. We need to accept that. That is the reality. Coming from an environment like that, it's a difficult environment. As I always say that for me, I experienced discrimination within my family before I even stepped out into experiencing it in South Africa as apartheid. That's the reality of the environment that I come from. But my parents ended up helping me to address, and me and my siblings to address some of those challenges. And the good thing about what has happened now is that I'm able to manage diversity. I'm able to understand the value of diversity and able to understand the importance of inclusion. All of that comes from that environment that I come from. We may look at it and say, wow, it was a bad environment. If you look at it differently, it actually helped me. It helped me in many ways to understand how to make sure that we do not leave people behind. We include everybody as we march forward with diversity and inclusion. Tough love, that is clearly, if you're talking about my mother, it defines her. And if you look at some of the people that would talk about me, okay, it looks nice, but it's clearly something that I do. It's clearly something that I feel is required, and they tell us. I think one of the writers once said that this world that we're living in, it lacks people who love us enough to tell us the truth. Say there are not enough people who love us enough to tell us the truth. And most of the time, that truth is so painful. And when you deliver it, it is painful. But if it's coming from the right place, you are trying to build the person, not to destroy the person. You'll find that a few years later, maybe 10 years later, when people connect with you, say, wow, you actually helped me. There's so many people that used to see what was happening around me, but they never told me this. And you helped me, and through that interaction, I was able to move to the next level. We owe each other the truth. We owe each other that level of honesty, because it is through that we're going to be able to make sure that we shift each other, we lift ourselves to the next level. And of course, I attended a number of schools. I was at St. John's College in Mteto, University of Natal, and up at Yale at some point. Worked for about 7 companies, Afrox, Microsoft, IBM, MTN. One of the things that I've picked up throughout all of that is that the success, how you become successful in an environment like in a school environment or a university environment, you cannot take that as something that, the formula that you are going to be using in the next environment. It's good that you were successful, but you need to understand the new environment. When I look at some of the lessons for me in the transition from university to the work environment, I think for 7 years, I was so frustrated with myself. So frustrated. First year of working. One of those guys that used to get, top marks, A this and A that, and then you come to an environment in Afrox, it's like you are stuck. Seeing people keep going, moving ahead, and you just think you are not moving anywhere. You are asking yourself, what is the problem? And my problem, I ended up figuring it out. My problem was that I was using the formulas of the university environment in this environment. What do I mean? If you want to be successful in the workplace, in any organization, you have to embrace teamwork. Teamwork is so key these days. We are working with such huge challenges and huge problems that require not that one person who's going to be a genius, who's going to know. You have to collaborate and work with others to come up with solutions. And if you do not get that, if you do not embrace collaboration, it becomes very difficult. And I did not do that. I used the formula that I was using at university. It did not work until I realized that I needed to change. The problem was not all of the white managers that were there. No, the problem was me. I had to work on myself. Asking for help. Many of us, come from a situation where you are dependent as a child, you're dependent to go to another level of being independent. I pride myself of being able to do things by myself. I don't need anybody, I can solve the problems, or hey, you enter the work space, you enter the work environment, you just cannot solve things by yourself. In fact, you have to also admit that you need help and be bold and courageous enough to reach out to people that can help you. And some of those people are people like Nigel, who is sitting here today. The person that I used to reach out to when I arrived at IBM, he had many, many years there. I had no clue about the IT industry at that time. Reach out to people like him, and many others. And that's what I mean. Sometimes we're trained to, you have to be a man. You die because you are not asking for help. Of course, embracing diversity, be of service to others, and take initiative. This one was another big one for black people like me. You trained there. I remember my parents used to say, there's a word in Xhosa, say, we are the gata, meaning it's like it's trying to discourage taking initiative. When you're displaying those qualities, like, no, Don't do it that. That's how you are programmed. And you come to the workplace, it's like you're sitting there and not asking anything, you're not volunteering, you're not going to go anywhere. You need to take initiative. And it's something that I learned, very difficult. So that transition, it happens from job to job. One needs to understand what are the things that will make one to be successful in the new environment that you are working with. I'm also going to share a little bit about some of the, what I would call conventional wisdoms. We go around carrying what are called mental models in our minds, the things that we don't know that these are the things that are governing us, but these are the things that program us to come up with certain decisions. We carry assumptions, but what we do not do is to question whether those assumptions or mental models are still valid. We don't do that. And with time, they may have been valid 10 years ago, but maybe now they're not valid. So you have to continue to ask yourself some of these questions. What is one of the assumptions or mental model? People say that the customer is always right. When one says that the customer is always right, it just sounds right, isn't it? Sounds right. Yeah, the customer is always right. It sounds, yeah. And you operate under that mode that the customer is always right. You are starting up a business. The customer is always right. The customer is not paying you, but the customer is right. It cannot be. You need to go and address the situation of the government or this company that is not paying you. Instead of sitting, oh no, I cannot have this discussion because the customer is always right. The customer is right, is telling you, no, for this deal, go and partner with the Nyati, whatever, company there. Okay, why? What is it that Nyati is bringing to what I'm bringing to you? You are not asking that question. You go and bring the Nyati company to be part of that. The customer is not right. What is the value that this company is? That's where the corruption starts. It starts from us not questioning some of these things. The customer is not right in that instance. He does not know the stuff that you are bringing. He does not know what you need. You go form your own partnerships. You do not have to be told by the customer, the kind of partners that you need. Immediately that they are starting to tell you which partner that you need, there's a red flag there. Why? Why is he or she choosing that particular partner? So my point is we're carrying these mental models, we're carrying these assumptions in our heads. Sometimes we say, if you look at that, one of the key models there is called the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I also used to, think that, hey, this is the model, until I started to ask myself some deep questions about this model. And you start to find that there are people who do not fit within that model. Maybe people who have outgrown that model. People like Mandela, people like Gandhi, people who, it's not about themselves, it's about others. It's what I call self-transcendence. You go and look at things beyond yourself, beyond self-actualization. So if you are stuck with that, it may have been right, it may have been the view then, So my point is that we always need to be questioning some of these things. We need to be questioning the models that we carry in our heads. For me, one of the big things that as any leader you have to do, you have to look for the best people, to surround yourself with the best people. See that the president has tried to do that. He has tried to do that. I would say in the main, he has achieved some of that. Maybe 3/4, somewhere there. Look, we are not perfect, so we will continue to improve. But he has tried that, and that's good, and we need to be we'll be happy with that step. But overall, we really do need to surround ourselves with people who are better than us. We always talk about these things, but we don't do it. Why? Because we are not so sure of ourselves. We're uncomfortable. We have to learn to surround ourselves with it. That's what we have done in Altron. Over the last, I would say, 11 months, we've brought in some very, very good people. Each one of those people, I can safely say, each one of those people are better than me in their areas of focus. Because immediately that I know more than you, in your area, we have a problem. We are going to have a big problem. You need to know more than me. So I have surrounded myself. Even the people that are left behind, they are old people that are still part of our EXCO, who are found within Altron. The people that are there, those are the best people for those roles. That's why they are part of the EXCO. And that's why we start to wonder, why does this guy look like he's got a magic when he goes to an environment, things turn around? There is no magic. The magic is to make sure that you surround yourself with the best people who question you, people who challenge you. And that is key. So that I've tried to do that. It's not the easiest of things. To manage smart people is not easy. It's not forever challenging you, but you learn in the process. You learn so much. The other thing is, you'll see that there are no Xhosas there. I come from the Eastern Cape. There's no Xhosa there. You choose people who are different from you. I'm not saying that if I find a Xhosa person who is great, I won't hire that person. But I'm just saying that by design, you look for people who are different from you, because those people will bring something different, will make the whole discussion, the whole approach much, much more productive and help us to address the big challenges that we face. Our challenges require us to look at things from different angles. And if you all have Xhosa men around you, all thinking around the same way, coming from the poverty of the Eastern Cape, it's going to be a problem. Many of us, this is something that we do not do a lot. It's ask yourself, who are my stakeholders? Wherever you are, you may have a small business, who are my key stakeholders? And proactively manage those stakeholders. In my situation, you'll find that the government of South Africa is one of the key stakeholders. And I cannot outsource that relationship. Building that relationship with key people, I cannot say, no, it has to be done by, I need to be part and parcel of managing those connections. Connections with customers, employees, key stakeholders, our business partners, the communities. These are stakeholders that you need to consciously manage. If you are working for a company, your boss is one of those stakeholders. You better understand what is it that he expects and wants. Very important. Otherwise, you are not going to have too much increase and promotion. So managing of stakeholders is something that really differentiates many, many brands. There are many brands, all of us have got brands, but the brands that stand out are the brands that consciously manage these relationships. In particular, the relationships around the communities where they work. Because ultimately, we need to uplift communities. We need to make sure that we serve those communities. We need to align with the priorities of government. most of the time, you see there we've been getting a lot of awards, and sometimes we get lost. You get lost in all of this praise, recognition, and all of this. And you forget truly who the people are that make us to be able to represent our companies and get these awards. The people that make the difference is the people, it's our staff, it's our employees. And these are the people who always give back that recognition, because it is them, they are the ones that have made the changes that makes us to be winning companies or winning organizations. So for me, look, I've been blessed. Most of the organizations that I've worked for, we have been able to do great things. But the key focus, if we were to look, that is the common thread. The common thread is the focus on people. Focusing on people and making sure that you create an environment where they bring their best game to work. You try. You can always try. Maybe not 100% every day, but at least you try to create that environment. Self-awareness. We really need to focus on this. It's one thing that all of us need to try. And who am I? What are the things that makes me who I am? What do I value? And why do I like the things that I like? Those are important questions that we should be asking ourselves. So that the more you know about yourself, the more also you know that these are the kind of people that I need to bring as part of my team. People who are maybe slightly different, or maybe people who share the same values as you. So that's something that over time I've been able to kind of figure out that these are some of the things that I believe makes me who I am. Family, excellence, integrity. Again, being born in a family that is divided, that is the benefit. Now I love inclusion. It's something that is just part of my DNA. Maybe the last point is let's make time to be with the people that we care most. We get lost in all of this, the glory and everything. We forget that we've got families, that if I look at myself, most of the time it's so lonely in the jobs that we do. And, maybe the person that I speak most to about issues, who is the most objective, is my wife, And that's the time that I value, because she will give me the feedback, At work, maybe people just, try and tell me what I need to hear. My wife does not care about that. She tells me that, you are not doing the right thing here, And we need to make time to be with the people that, if I look at maybe the thing that have helped me throughout, it is that focus, very much focus on my family. So with that, I will stop there and open it up for Q&A.
Thank you so much.
For me, diversity is not really about just race. Diversity is in its broader sense. Diversity in terms of gender, to have different types of people. In terms of age, there needs to be diversity as part of the team. Even in terms of geography. Some of us, I remember when I was at MTN, one of the things that I decided to do as part of my team was to bring people from Europe that have already gone through some of the changes, like as we're moving from voice to data. The network that is helping us to do all of that, it requires different kinds of skills. And if you find that in Europe and in the US, they have already moved more towards data than us here in South Africa. And we were battling with things like dropped calls and all of that. Our network was poor. And one of the decisions that I made said, against many people saying, you cannot do that. I said, no, we need to do this. Bringing people who have lived through this transition elsewhere, so that we do not have to reinvent the wheel. And bringing those expertise, that's another level of diversity from a geography, bringing something that is valuable to the team here, us learning from that individual. By the way, just to brag, I just saw today that MTN is the best network in the country. It's the stuff that we started, it's the investment that we made 2 years ago. And it's this kind of thing that I'm talking about. And in addressing things, when you look at the complexity of the problems that we're facing, we need to be looking at problems from different angles. If our key customers, if you look at the population, 50% of them is women. And yet we've got a leadership team that is 100% male. And we're trying to sell service, we're trying to be relevant to this, that's again what I mean. We need the voices that are different that are going to help us to be relevant. So diversity for me is all of that. I hope it is clear. It makes sense. Okay. The importance of education. I remember when we had maybe about 6-7 years ago, no, even maybe 8 years ago, when Mam Angie started, Angie Mutsekga, when she took over as the Minister of Basic Education. She called a number of CEOs and asked us to help to address the challenges that are facing education. And her team stood up and they shared with us some of the key challenges, and they listed something like maybe 40 things that they felt that these are the big problems that are facing education in this country. I raised my hand and I just made an observation. Of course, it was not the most popular observation, but I had to make it. That I worry when we say that we've got 40 or 45 problems. Which means work has not been done. We have not done the analysis. Because ultimately, when you're looking at a problem, some things are symptoms, we need to apply the rigor to go to the root of the problem. And if you look at the problem of education, really it comes down to maybe 4 or 5 things. It's not the 50 things. And that is something that sometimes when we look at some of our approach to problem solving in our country, we get lost to trying to chase all of these things instead of focusing on the few things that can make a big difference. Our contribution in that meeting was that if I look back at the school that I come from, which is a rural school, that has been able to produce so many great people who have done exceptionally well. What is it? They did not have the internet. They did not have much. What is it that they had? They did not have much resources. The first thing that they had was a great leader, a principal. Leadership matters. Leadership is so important. By just having that one person who could provide direction, who could hold people accountable, it made all of the difference. So what is my point? My point is, if we're looking at education in our country, instead of focusing on the 20,000, 200,000 teachers that are out there, maybe one of the first things that we need to be doing is to ask ourselves, do we have the right leadership at those schools? By just changing that, if you look at there's a school called Mbilwi in Limpopo, consistently is able to deliver 100% pass. All the time. It's in a rural area all the time. Why? starts with that one person. But the good thing is about that person, start attracting also good people. Find that the teachers around. So if we again want to address the challenges facing our country in education, build capacity of the principals, help them, first find the right ones, help them, give them the necessary leadership skills. Also focus on the teachers. Most of them, they cannot even pass if you give them the exam they just cannot pass. That is a problem. They are teaching something that they themselves are going to fail. What kind of a result are you expected to get there? We need to address that. We need to first accept that is a problem. What I'm saying, we need to be honest with ourselves. Address that as a problem. And then come to the things like technology, but that comes, in my mind, it comes last. Leading with technology is not going to solve these problems. When you've got teachers that fear even touching that iPad, they just cannot, they are so scared. So that's the first thing around education. Mentorship. For me, this is something that all of us have to. Even today, I've got a mentor. Today, I go and meet somebody, and it's not one, it's a couple of people helping for me to address a number of things. So you need to open yourself up for a mentorship relationship. It's something that is so important. These are some of the people that, I will not say now, it's more of a coach now for me. It's people that keep asking me questions, and I'm able to come out with the answers. In the answering those things, I end up growing as an individual. Have I been in a toxic situation? Always. It's not because I've created it, but in all environments, you always find those situations, And I think the key is to continuously try and find people that bring light, to environments, and try to help those people to neutral. You'll always find people that are pulling everybody down, toxic, there's politicking. But having open conversations with people, giving feedback, is something that not many people do. Giving feedback, it is so key. Because sometimes people don't even know the effect that they have on others. And also being open yourself to feedback, because we're all human beings. What do I say to young people, in particular young black people that are entering the corporate environment? There's quite a lot that one can say, because we need, again, to be honest that sometimes our upbringing, maybe not for this new generation now, but my generation, you were socialized differently. We were socialized differently. And things, you need to be respectful, you need to do this, you should not be asking questions. That's the kind of culture that we're coming from. You need to know that is not going to cut it in the corp. And should not be moaning about that and say, oh no, this. You need to accept it as a reality. The other thing that I accept personally is that as a black person, very likely that when people are looking at me, their first judgment is, they will clearly say, what can we expect from this, So already they are, they're starting you from negative. I can cry about that, I can moan, I can complain, or can I accept it? That is the life. It is unfair. I know it's unfair. But that it is what it is. Accept it, accept it and proceed from there. If people are going to put me there, when each time they're looking at me, what is it that I have to do in order for me to be able to rise above? Start from that. And why should we do this? Why, is there any God? You can ask all of those questions. It's not going to help you. You just need to accept certain things. You don't like it, But by your actions, you then need to start to demonstrate to people that how stupid are they to make the assumptions that they are making. By your actions, by your performance. And you start to making a difference. But accept it and then learn from others. That's why I was saying reach out to people. When I reached out to people like Nigel and many people like him, it was because I understood my weaknesses. I understood those weaknesses and I reached out and asked for help. And many, many South Africans right across the color line, they are willing to help. We are the ones who sometimes feel that they don't want to help. We need to reach out to people. Yeah. Reach out and they will be able to help. My answer is accept your situation, your reality, and proceed from that and move on. How can I make sure that I disprove whatever they are thinking? That, to me, is the right action than complaining. I've never been an entrepreneur. You remember I was saying that one needs to be self-aware. I've always I come from an environment, a family that is very much entrepreneurial. My brothers and my sisters, all of them have got, but I've always known for me, it is not something that I've got, I just don't have that. So I've moved to environment which I felt is in line with who I am. Hence, I was talking about the self-awareness. And if it is for you, entrepreneurship, and it is for many, many people, and we need that. In our country, we need people that are going to come up with solutions to our problems. In fact, as we sit in our townships and sit in wherever we're coming from, you'll find that the people who are benefiting out of the problems that are in our communities are not us. There are people who are not living in our communities. They come and solve the problems of our communities. To be blunt, it's the white guys are solving the problems in white communities. They're making money out of addressing our problems. But we are sitting with these problems. We are around these problems. We should be fixing these problems. And we're waiting for other people to solve these problems. Instead of complaining about the problems are there, how can we fix them? So if it is for you, what you need to be entrepreneur, then look for things, for problems. If you're coming up with a business model that does not make sense and expect to be successful, your business model, what is the value that you are bringing? Your value cannot be, I'm buying from IBM and I'm passing over to you. What is your value in the process? What value have you added in that process? So we need to be asking ourselves that it's a difficult question, but you need to have a business model. Well, that's the only way of making money. And once you have a very, very good business model, it's not going to be difficult to come and sell to Mteto and whoever else because you've got something of value. You are not asking for a favor. You are actually addressing my problem with your solution. It's not a favor. You are delivering value to me. I guess the source of the strength, I don't know. I think it's just more, it's the belief in yourself, it's belief in humanity, the fact that ultimately, we can say all of what we say about each other, but at the core, people know that we are all the same, They know that. You may be been given this lifetime, have been given a white skin, maybe the other lifetime you had a black skin, We are all the same. We are all human beings. And that, to me, is something that is a fundamental thing that we all need to understand, We are all human beings. We're all got same feelings, So no matter what people say, it's not a reflection on you. It's actually a reflection on them or where they are in their I'll call it level of spiritual growth. It tells them, those who choose to maybe discriminate and judge others, it has got nothing to do with you. It says a lot about them. The first question was around making choices. I emphasized that who we are is actually a collection of our choices. If you look back at the choices that you have made, those are the things that have led you to where you are today. So making choices is one of the most important things, because where you will end up is really going to be about how you are making those choices. So let us not take lightly the whole question of choices. So you asked me to go back to my own, to myself and look at the examples where I've made choices. I made a choice much, much earlier in my life. I remember my dad was a teacher, and he clearly is someone who wanted to do medicine, and unfortunately, because of the situation of his time, he ended up not doing it. But he always wanted that. It's something that for him, medicine is the thing. And somehow he managed to influence us to want the things that he wanted. And in a way, I remember, when I was in grade 12, when being interviewed by Daily Dispatch, I was representing South Africa in the UK in the Science Olympiad. I said then that I would like to be a doctor. That was when I was going to the UK. That was before I was exposed to real life. When I came back from the UK in London, I was clear that being a doctor is the last thing that I should be. And now, having represented South Africa, it looks like you are the smart one, and you say that you are going to do what? No, I want to do mechanical engineering. What is that? No, it's mechanical engineering. You explain. He chooses not to listen. He does not want to hear. But for me, had I not stood my ground and decided to do the thing that I felt I needed to do, I don't know, I may have been a doctor, but a very, very miserable doctor. Yeah, I would be a miserable doctor, and probably killing some patient in the process. So I made that choice, and it was not the most popular decision. Clearly, my parent, not my father in particular, in our communities, I'm talking black communities, doctors, they look up to. And now he could not even say, my son is doing what? What is it that you're doing? Motor mechanic. No, this is not motor mechanic. It is mechanical engineering. So he just did not want to hear that, because, from a status, it's clearly something that he was putting it somewhere there. So I made that choice, and I am happy with the choice that I made. And we faced with many of those things in our lives all the time. And you make one decision, it's going to lead you in a particular direction forever. And you have to live with the consequences. That's why I'm saying we need to always be thinking about the choices that we make. The need for change. How do you balance the change, the speed, and what?
And the quality.
And quality. I must say this comes from an Altron person. It's very difficult to question. I think maybe I need to understand the context. If the context is around changing in an organization that you are working, for For example, us in Altron, we need to start to reflect more and more the society that we are operating in, versus it today largely at senior levels. We are not like that, And as a leadership team, we have had to have a very open discussion about that and have made some decisions that we want to change that. It is not a Mteto thing. We understand that for our survival, for us to grow, for us, all of us to have a future, we need to make these changes. But then, how quickly are you going to be making this change? I remember my first job as a manager at IBM. I quickly inherited this unit, maybe about 25 people. It was SMB, 25 people, and inherited. I'm excited. Now I'm going to transform. I'm going to do a lot of transformation here. And of course, fast forward maybe a year and a half later, that whole team, it looked like a homeland. And of course, now when I look back, I say, was that the right thing to do? Is that what we want? Is that the South Africa that we are building, a South Africa that is excluding others? It was clearly not the right thing. I might have achieved the objective of, making it a black environment, but is it the right thing to do? It's not. Our South Africa, we say that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, all of us. We need to be creating those environments. We always have to keep that in mind as we are building. So for me, going forward, transformation is about that balance. It's about looking at, okay, maybe it's a gender thing, maybe I think. At the same time, you also need to understand what is the objective of the organization that you're working for. You can do all of that and then you miss your numbers, you get into losses, then all of the people lose their jobs. Have you done transformation a favor? So you have to do things, in a right pace, mix, deliver the results, show people, and then that will earn you the space and the result, it will earn you the space for you to continue to be driving that transformation, but lead with the results. Does it make sense? Yeah. We always have to, if you lead with transformation, I've seen many, many disasters. We need to lead with results. Delivering, what is the objective of your organization? Deliver on that, continue to drive the changes, but focus on the delivery. What can I say to the team of senior leaders? What was the question again? Oh, yes, you are leading. I honestly think that regardless whether you are leading people who are older than you or people who are much, much more smarter than you or technically they know so much more than you, you need to ask yourself, what is the role of a manager and a leader? Once you are able to answer that question, you'll start to understand that you should not be worried. Because the role of a leader, of a manager, is not so much to compete with those people or to show those people how much you know. Is to really help them, to support them, is to serve them, is to create, if they've got issues, they've got blockages, to go and fight for them and open opportunities for them. In that space, you're not going to be competing with any one of them. And it's regardless whether you're old or everybody wants someone who is in his corner and helping address their cause. So for me, let's ask ourselves, what is the role of a manager? If we get that, the manager is about serving the people that you are managing. That, whether those people have got PhDs, you should not even worry. My job is to make your life that much more easy. And you continue to do that, they will continue to support you. Emerging leaders. I will look at, I'm just going to use one example. It's not necessarily capture all of this. I look at what we did when we were at Microsoft. We were faced with complying with BEE there at Microsoft. You need to comply with BEE. And the choices that we had is to sell 25% stake to blacks, and I was one of those, being the leader, so I was going to probably one of the people that benefit the most quickly. So that's the one route we could have chosen, the route of selling and then, and making people like me super rich. So that's one route. But we asked ourselves the question, what is the spirit of this BEE? What is it that we're trying to do around BEE? And we came to the conclusion it's about transforming society, it's about uplifting people, it's about creating IP in the country. We felt that the best way to address that BEE question within Microsoft was to go out there and identify small businesses, entrepreneurs, people that are in the same space as us in IT. Find those small companies that have got something unique that they can offer. Partner with those companies over a 7-year period, inject, support them, coach them, and make them to become big players. Fast forward to today, some of those partners, there's a company called Astel Systems. Some of those companies are delivering services from South Africa to global players. These were two-man company at the time that we signed them up. It's a global company doing exceptional work from South Africa, creating jobs here. That's about looking at things slightly differently and looking, besides just looking at yourself, and this is something that is going to, how can we address the challenges of lack of IP in our country? Instead of always bringing IP from overseas, how can we develop IP? How can we help those companies to employ people, because we have a huge unemployment problem in South Africa. As these small companies grow, they are going to be absorbing. So that is one of the ways in which we address this thing. And it came from exactly that, looking beyond yourself. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much.